Hi, Hale McGranhan from CUTigers.com. Hal, it's a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good to be back on.
Hal, thanks again for being with us. We had you on back in December before the Orange Bowl, but obviously it's really busy time for you guys probably at CUTigers.com with National Signing Day coming up next Wednesday. And just talk a little bit about the 2014 class that Clemson has put together this year.
Yeah, they've got it right now. On Scout.com, they're only rated as the 29th class in the country, and a lot of that's got to do because of the total numbers. Scout's formula for determining the rankings weighed heavily on the actual number of bodies. So naturally, Clemson's is a little bit lower, and it will be when it's all said and done after Wednesday, because they're probably only going to sign 1, 2, at most 3 more guys in addition to that 18. But breaking down the class, heavy on wide receiver, heavy on linebacker. I really like the receiver group with Tim Scott in particular, who's already on campus. He's from out of Florida, kind of a shifty guy that's going to play the position. You saw Sammy playing the last 3 years. Of course, Damari Kitt, who's out of Georgia, went to the same high school as Calvin Johnson down there at Sandy Creek. He's also on campus, and there's Tyron Priester, who originally signed in 2013, had to spend this past fall at Fort Union getting squared away academically. Of course, he's on campus as well. So it's a strong group rounded out with Trevion Thompson. I really like that, and I think it's just gonna plug in, and before too long we're going to be talking about these guys being the next among the next big time group of Clemson wide receivers. So I think it's a strong group, and of course, neglect to mention Deshaun Watson, another guy also on campus, as the headliner, biggest position in sports. And when you've got a guy who some people consider the best quarterback in the country coming to play for your team, that's plenty of reason to be excited. So it's a pretty good class, I think. A lot of reason for Clemson fans to be excited with this group.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, loaded at wide receiver. I think that's the general consensus with this class. But what can you tell us about some of those recruits that are wavering or rethinking, like Richard Yergin and Andrew Williams are two of the biggest ones. But are there any other you can think of?
Yeah, you mentioned Yergin, who was committed to Notre Dame. He's decommitted, and we reported at CU Tigers, and a few other folks reported that he committed to Clemson, and everyone kind of backed off that. But I know we believe that he's going to end up signing with Clemson on Wednesday, and I'm sure pretty much everyone else does too. So I would imagine he'll be in with this class. Mentioned Andrew Williams, and it's basically down to Clemson and Auburn. I've not seen anything today saying whether or not he will take a visit this last weekend before signing day. But it's probably a Clemson and Auburn battle for him. The last guy is Corey Thomas, the defensive tackle out of Alabama, who committed to Tennessee, I believe, in November, December. And he's been looking at Clemson and as well as Mississippi State in addition to Tennessee. He'll be at Tennessee this weekend for his official visit. He was in Clemson 2 weekends ago, I believe it was. Yeah, 2 weekends ago, and Tennessee last weekend. So, yeah, those are really the three that we're keeping an eye on at this point, unless something else happens between now and Wednesday.
Right. Once again, joined by Hale McGranhan from CUTigers.com and the great work they do over there. Talk a little bit about Alvin Kamara, I think's his name, and his transfer from Alabama, I guess, and where do you think he's going to end up?
Tough to say at this point. I have not talked to Alvin. It's kind of hard to get information regarding that at this point. I believe he is still in school at Alabama, finishing out the semester there. So it's probably a little too early to start saying where he might go. I know he said Clemson is a place that he was going to look at. He really looked at Clemson heavily when he was coming out of Norcross High School down in Georgia a couple of years back. He also mentioned a place like Florida State. I don't know what the deal is with them. I think Oregon came up, UCLA. So there's a lot of time left with Allen before we start to really get too deep into that one. I think we'll probably have to wait until after signing day before we can start getting too serious about covering that thing. Because I think Clemson and just about everybody else who's going to want to go after Kamara is really focused on finishing up with this signing class. What signing they come up in here in a few days.
Right. Let's transfer back over to the wide receivers real quick. You talked about Deshaun Watson, obviously the biggest recruit on the offensive side of the ball. But what can you say about these receivers? Who do you think is poised to make the biggest impact with Clemson in the future?
Long term, I really like our famous Scott. Like I said earlier, I just think he's just really explosive, and I don't like to use the word dynamic a lot because I think he gets tossed around too frequently these days. But he's so dynamic; he can do so many different things, and I think you'll see him really making a lot of plays. Before his career's all said and done, I don't know if he'll be right off the bat because he's got a little bit of growing to do physically. But I guess maybe he could put the necessary size on since he's already on campus. So I like him a lot, and of course Kit, another 4-star guy like Scott, Trayvon Thompson as well, 4-star guy, all on scout. I think initially coming in, I really like Kyron Priester making an impact on day one. I think he was potentially a guy that would have been ready to do that last year had he qualified. And given that he's a year older and been through some things with some life experiences, having to go to Fort Union, within the last several months or so, maybe he could be a little more ready mentally as well as physically. So I really like the group. I think all of them, before it's all said and done, we'll see them making some pretty important plays at Clemson, whether it's catching passes from Deshaun Watson or Chad Kelly or post out this fall or whoever else down the line. I think Clemson fans are plenty of reason to be excited about that group of 4 receivers.
Right, you talk about some of the playmakers from the future. What can you say about the schedule coming up? That's been the biggest news of the last couple weeks. What can you say about the importance of the bye weeks before Florida State and Louisville?
Bye week before Florida State. That's all. No, there's not a bye week before.
Yeah, sorry, my mistake. I don't know why I got.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Florida State. That's important. Kind of gear back up after going down to Georgia and probably beating up on FC State a week later. You can't, they'll get there a couple weeks to, make sure everybody's healthy and ready to roll, and that's big. You can't really quantify that in the off season. I guess we just kind of have to wait and see how that plays out in the fall. And I believe Florida State also has a bye week before that game, so maybe kind of cancels it out and giving Clemson an advantage in that regard. But nonetheless, it's still nice for Clemson to be able to have that extra set of days. And you look on the back end of the schedule, they got to go to Wake Forest. And if you remember a couple of years ago, the last time they played Wake Forest was a Thursday night game. So this coming season, they'll get that Thursday night game at Wake Forest. Then, of course, they won't play that next Saturday. Then their following game, which is the Saturday at Georgia Tech. So they'll get a couple extra days to. I don't think they'll necessarily use them to prepare for Georgia Tech, but it's nice to get that extra set of days just in case they want to go ahead and start taking a little early look at Georgia Tech and what they're doing with that triple option, which seems to get under everybody's skin down there at Clemson.
One quick question about basketball. We've been talking about football recruits. What can you say about the basketball recruiting, where scoring definitely an issue with this team? Gabe DeVoe has been putting up some big high school numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, DeVoe's a guy that I really like as kind of a combo guard, not necessarily a point guard or a shooting guard, maybe a little bit of both, depending on who else is on the floor with them. He's a guy they had into their camp over the summer, and that's when they offered him. They really got a good look at him, and they felt that he was a guy they thought that could help them out. And he's a nice player. He had some pretty good other offers. I know a lot of people see offers like Fleur and Xavier and places like that, but those are programs over the years that have been proven to be good at evaluating talent and picking out good players. So when you see Clemson signing a guy who has those other kinds of options on the table. It's something that Clemson fans should feel pretty good about. And there's Dante Grantham, the other guy who's signed with Clemson, who's up at Hargrave Military Academy, who is kind of a stretch for. I don't want to say. I say he's liking Milton Jennings, and I know Clemson fans will probably hear liking Milton Jennings and kind of roll their eyes, but he's like Milton Jennings in that he's going to play kind of on the perimeter, even though he's a little bigger. He's like 6'7", 6'8". He's that size. He's going to be out there on the perimeter, shooting threes and operating from there. So I think they're definitely upgrades in talent, and I think that, like I was saying with those wide receiver recruits, reasons for Clemson fans to be excited. I know there are probably some folks that are down about these last couple losses to Pitt and North Carolina, and they should be. I know the folks over at the basketball building are pretty pissed off about them too, having talked to a couple of those guys earlier today. But yeah, and kind of a recruit, so to speak, coming in with those two guys is Patrick Brooks, the guy who's on campus already, signed. Redshirting right now is a shooter, and he's not playing because he's injured, so you can kind of count him as another recruit coming in next season. So there's going to be some upgrades in the scoring department next year. So I think a little bit of patience is in order for Clemson fans. I know they want to win now, but there's some good days ahead, I believe.
Right, and Coach Brownell's doing a good job with it, and we really appreciate the time, Hal, and keep up the great work at cutigers.com as y'all stay busy throughout the signing day next week. So thanks again.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, that's Hale McGranhan from cutigers.com.